Good afternoon and welcome to another in a series of Saturday Sports Special, a part of TalkSports, where we speak with the movers and shakers of sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, the administrators, present and past. Well, this weekend in particular, our special guest is no stranger to sports in Grenada and possibly in the Caribbean. He's a former national footballer, national captain, now administrator. We're speaking about the president of the Grenada Football Association, a one-time vice president of the Caribbean Football Association. We welcome Mr. Cheney Joseph to our program. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Joseph. How are things?
My neck of the woods, I'm fine. Good afternoon to you and all who's looking at your program.
Okay. That's good to hear, and probably I start off by asking you, as I have asked many of our past guests on the program, how have you been coping with the pandemic?
Well, I have not had the privilege of relaxing like most people. Maybe for a maximum of 1 week, I was away from office, but pretty much even during the lockdown here in Grenada, I have been working, going to the office almost every day of the week, trying to satisfy my customers. And I've just been trying my best to play it safe, adhering to as many of the protocols. Sometimes I may have forgotten sometimes, but the majority of the time I've been trying to cope and to do things right.
I must say, you have a very nice backdrop there, but it looks as if it's sort of overcast.
Yeah, it's been raining very heavy earlier on. Actually, you're seeing from my vantage point the view I get sometimes when I'm in my veranda.
That's very good to hear. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling with some football. As president of the Grenada Football Association, but let's start off first to find out what's happening in terms of football this weekend. Any activities planned? What you know of?
Yeah, actually there is some U19 games. Last weekend the U19 football, GFA U19 football started, and also the U15 had concluded on the same day or on the weekend. And last week we had 4 matches in the Wagiti Super Knockout in the round of 16, and there's another 2 games today and 2 tomorrow. Those games today should be exciting, and those tomorrow also. One notable observation is that our national U17 boys have been participating, and they're still in. If they did in fact manage to win tomorrow, it means they'll get into the quarterfinal, and I'm hopeful that it might happen for them.
Okay, and Cheney, all kudos to the Grenada Football Association, especially in terms of leading what I should say, in the not even post-COVID, but in terms of getting sports back. I thought the GFA took the lead, and I think after there was the Grenada Cricket Association in terms of, I think it started with the Pure Grenada Cup and other such tournaments. Now we have the Wagiti tournament also. But what was the thinking behind that in terms of the GFA? I mean, especially working along with the other stakeholders like the Ministry of Health in getting football restarted.
Well, if I could take you back to around the time when the government announced that the country was going on lockdown, it was just a few days away from our national team playing 2 international friendly. We had a game scheduled against Martinique and then another against Suriname. Both of them were going to be away games. And a few days after the Pure Grenada Cup was scheduled to start, as well as the U15 had started, when government made the announcement that the place was going to be locked down, we couldn't just sit idly by and say, well, okay, let's not do anything. It's an excuse to not work and, just relax. What we have to take on board is that more than 1,000 plus players were affected by that decision, because it means that people were just sitting home, watching television, eating food, getting fat. And what we decided is, during the lockdown, let's have a series of virtual meetings. We had many virtual meetings with the executive. I had a few meetings with the staff of the GFA virtually. And then we had about 4 or 5 meetings with the general counsel. Now, while all of that was going on, the Secretariat was working hard in communication with the Ministry of Health, the government, and we were, and I hope I'm not blowing our trumpet, but we were the first to write a very detailed protocol to allow for the resumption of football. In fact, very early, we submitted that same document to the Ministry of Health. We also submitted it to the Olympic Committee and recommended to them that it might be worth looking at, and encourage other sporting associations to do likewise. I think then a few of the associations followed suit. But we were always planning. During that time, we had meetings with FIFA, we had meetings with CONCACAF, we met with consultants, we reviewed our strategic plan and made some adjustments to it, because, for the period that we were locked down, we would have lost time and activities during that period. So we were doing a lot, and when they gave us the green light was to first do the FA Cup. We had 4 teams remaining in the tournament, and we were able to get permission to allow that 4 teams to start training. Once those 4 teams started training, people started getting some excitement. In fact, other people started going out into the field and kicking ball without even the approval. But then the Ministry of Health would have encouraged organizations to do similar protocols like we did. We asked clubs to take note of all who's attending training, do the temperature check. We could not do those PCR tests and the rest of it, but we did almost everything that was requested to ensure that everyone participating in football was safe.
And overall, you will say, Cheney, that I don't want to say initiative, but that decision taken by the GFA boded well for football for 2020 under the circumstances.
I will say to you, it's one of our better years. I said to a few people, and I say here to you and to whoever is listening or watching, the COVID-19 to me is an opportunity rather than just seeing it as a pandemic. It gave us a chance to revisit many of the things we were doing. It gave us a chance to do some tweaking to some of those things we were doing. And more importantly, it gave us a chance to also reflect on things we weren't doing good. I will say to you, I feel good about the fact that not only we've had a series of competitions playing during those periods, we've been able to engage our affiliates, the stakeholders, and to help them start reorganizing themselves as clubs. It's something that I hope we'll talk about a little later on. But we have done well. And in fact, I will say to you, in that short time between June and now, the amount of football that has played and the quality has been good also is significant. And we continue to do more. And as I indicated before in another forum, I think the GFA is doing a wonderful job.
Before we go on, Cheney, to talk a little more on the administrative side of football in Grenada in particular, let's talk a bit about the Cheney Joseph, the former footballer, once former footballer. I just kidding.
I'm still a footballer.
Yeah, but the Cheney Joseph, because I recall speaking to Ryan O'Brien from St. Lucia, our good friend Ryan O'Brien from St. Lucia yesterday, and he was, he said, I noticed that you're speaking to Cheney Joseph tomorrow, which is today, and he was talking about recalling the days of Windward Islands tournament, to be exact,
Yeah.
WIFA tournament, and we are looking at some of the players, albeit some of them, especially in St. Lucia, some St. Lucians not, I'll focus now, some of them, gone on the side and things like that. So, but just let's look at your era back then in the 80s, playing football, representing Grenada, playing in these tournaments, whether it's the Windward Islands tournament or regional tournament. What it was like, Cheney?
It's a lot to speak about. And I will say to you openly, football is a master of life. Football teaches people how to be disciplined. It helps you with the ability to engage people in conversations. It has created friendship, long-lasting friendship. It has created many opportunities for me. If I was to go back to when I first started playing or started being around football, I would say I was probably about 8, 9 years, and some may say I was a little bit kind of nosy. I remember the national team training and Roy St. John and Papa and Lahaye and those kinds of people. And one day Plug called out to me and he said, "Hey, you little boy, come here. And he said, "Can you read and write?" I said, "Yes, sir," And from then on, he appointed me to call out the register for the national training. And the reason why I had to do the register is because players were refunded for attending training. So he then started giving me the money to share out to these people. I remember that well. And then a gentleman by the name of John Diabo saw me once in the park. I was probably about 11 years. And he said to me, "You will be a national footballer one day." I had no idea that I wanted to play football, because the truth is I feel I was better in cricket. And I then started playing, and the more John Diabo started seeing me, the more he was impressed. And then one day out of the blues, he gave me a pair of Puma, black and yellow Puma boots. And thereafter, I remember Alistair Telesford, and Alistair would be forever somebody I will always regard highly. Alistair Telesford started bringing me in the park whenever Atoms was playing. And when I heard people talking about Alistair or seeing what Alistair was doing on the field of play, I started feeling I wanted to be like him. And you know what was my work for Alistair back then when I was probably about 12, 13? Every training session Alistair finished, I had to go clean his shin guard, clean his boots, soak his pants if it was very dirty, and then, make sure it's kind of scrubbed a little bit before his mom, Miss Louisa, take it and wash it. And then I started doing that often, and wherever Atoms was going on, Alistair would bring me with him. And I started getting into the park when Grenada was playing, and that time Alistair had returned from the US. And I will get into the park free. I will be in the dressing room. And I felt like, this is something I could probably try. And at age 17, I always refer to my story, how I got onto Grenada national team. And it's a unique one. By then, I had moved from Atoms to Queen's Park Rangers, but I could not make Queen's Park Rangers first 11. And if you made the bench, you were not likely to get game. But then, for some reason, some Queen's Park Rangers players boycotted representing St. George's in the parish tournament. And there was a Brazilian coach who was in Grenada at the time. And I said, "Sir, I could run home from my boots and come and play." He said, "Where you live?" And I told him where I was living. And I ran home quickly, came back, sat on the bench for about half an hour, maybe the first half. And then he said, "All right, let's put on that little boy." And that was the beginning of my career as a national player. He thought I was one of the better players. I remember being offered the opportunity to go to Brazil to play in a lower division football, but there was one little catch behind it. At that point in time, I've always been a skinny guy, right? So I think I was 18 or 19, and they wished that I was like 15, and so they attempted to get a passport saying that I was younger, and that didn't work out. So I didn't get to go to Brazil with the support from that coach. I then went on to playing for the national team for the next 15 years, although when I made my second effort at playing for Grenada. It was here in Grenada. We were hosting the 1985 tournament. I got into the national team in 84. But the 1985 UEFA tournament, Brian Brim-Lewis, my good friend, he was also a national basketball player. And even though Grenada was playing in the UEFA tournament, Brim had the intention of going and play basketball the night. And I had the privilege of being with him. He was the captain then. And I ran away from camp at Mama's, wanting to go and get a haircut, or trim as we would call it, in River Road. And on my way back, that was November the 17th, 1985, I crashed, and I was pretty much home for the next month. I mean, I lost almost every part of my body. So these are some of the things I remember. I also remember playing for Grenada. I was the captain. No, I wasn't the captain. But we won the tournament, the UEFA tournament in St. Lucia. However, the St. Lucians were expecting St. Lucia to be the favorite to win. And when we were leaving, we were living near La Clery, and some St. Lucians started stoning the bus, and the driver ran out of the bus and left us, the national players, where we were going back to the hotel. No, not the hotel, the airport. And Steve Mark, may he rest in peace, and Pele said, "But Cheney, you could drive." And, you know, I took the bus and I drove from La Clery down to the airport. I always remember that story, and that was a weird one. Another story I remember good in UEFA. I mean, these are just some moments. I hope you have the patience. In Dominica, that's the year we came last. I think it was 1987. We came last, but we lost some penalty kick, by the way. I might just let you know. It wasn't that we came last being humiliated. And Alidi Bellat was the coach, I think. And after the goal scored against us, against Dominica, I then put the entire squad in the goal while the ball was in the net still. And I said, watch me. I don't care if it costs me being on the national team again. This is what we're going to do. This is where you're going to play. And I changed around the team. And we were able to get an equalizer. But anyhow, that was a moment where it didn't go down too good with the coach. And then another moment I will always remember, that time I was captain though, and the coach of the national team selected a squad which we didn't feel was good enough to win. So I called a few senior players. We were in my room up in on the lane. I forgot the name of the place. There was a hotel up on the lane. And we changed the squad. We won the game. And guess what? Every single person who participated in that discussion where the decision was made that night was left on the bench in the next game. So these are some of the Windward Island moments I remember. But UEFA was always one place tournament, that really allowed for us to build friendship. And many of the guys, Kentish was a footballer, by the way, Thomas Kentish. We still remain friends. Glenn Etienne, who is now the president of Dominica Football. I remember him, you know, and many others. Not only that, the Marcusson tournament. I remember Rangers going to both St. Lucia and Barbados, and we made friends there. So football for me has been great, and I feel like I'm giving back, even though at times it has been hard.
Okay, well, it's interesting because I see a good friend is bigging you up, shouting you up, but he made mention of a guitar pan player. I'm not certain whether this is true, Cheney.
Yeah, actually, well, Claxton was coaching the national team, and I'll give you a little joke about it. I remember I spoke about my accident with the motorbike. That's how I moved. I started playing pan with Angel Harps, and I spent 3 years there. But because of the accident where I cost Grenada the championship when we were hosted, Claxton told me, don't come back in the pan house. So I then moved from there, and I went to Guinness. And I played with Guinness until Guinness broke up in 1987, and then I moved to Comancheros. But then when the national team started playing a lot more games, I then, you know, decided pan wasn't something that I could continue playing, but it's something I'll always love, you know. And I think pan is another discipline that really teaches people how to be able to, respect authority, how to concentrate, how to focus on things. And I will say to you, PAN and football, these are two things that has helped me.
Okay. Well, you spoke quite a bit about WIFA and St. Lucia, and obviously David Gray would like to say that that's Winners TV watching from St. Lucia. Great work on spearheading such a vibrant Grenada Football Association. It is a real functioning model for other football associations across the region. You and your team are setting a high standard. Kudos to you and your team. Keep working. Definitely, Gray is expressing some sentiments, Cheney, in terms of Windward Islands football. I don't know what has been happening of recent in terms of the other associations within the Windward Islands grouping, but it appears from based on what Gray is saying that Grenada continues to lead in terms of football associations in the sub-region. You have been part of the discussions over the years regarding Windward Islands football, reviving Windward Islands football, spearheading, getting Barbados a part of the WIFA tournament, these sort of things. What has been happening regarding Windward Islands football, Cheney?
Well, I think the WIFA tournament, it's 2 years now, but we have been budgeting for and advocating the continuation of that tournament. I hope I'm not putting myself on, or putting anyone on the spot, but the Grenada Football Association believes, and me as president believe, that WIFA tournament is a necessary staple for the development of football in our region. I think it has produced people like myself and many others, and there's no reason why a president or presidents of the WIFA territories would not want it to continue. Now, WIFA was formed when there was insufficient games for the 4 islands of the Windward Island. And some may argue, well, you have a lot more tournament now. You have CFU tournaments, CONCACAF tournaments, FIFA tournaments. But I have a different view on it. I believe that WIFA is a tournament that should continue for as long as we can, and I believe all associations should budget for it. However, I would like to put a little spin to what I think we can do also. I believe that associations are getting more money now from FIFA for the development of the sport in our region, and I see no reason why we can't consider having an under-13 WIFA tournament, an under-15 WIFA tournament, and an under-17 WIFA tournament. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at the history of Caribbean football, the Windward Islands has not produced sufficient professional footballers. I did not say we have not produced sufficient good players. We've produced many quality players in all 4 islands. However, professionally, not much players have moved from amateur to professional. And part of the reason might be that when these players are discovered, they are discovered at a very late age, 20, 21, 22. I mean, I know Velox and Jack in St. Vincent and Henderson. I know St. Lucia has had a few, Dominica also, and we have had a few. But I believe if we could take the WIFA tournament and bring it down to U13, U15, U17, and then engage some of the bigger clubs, whether it's in the Caribbean or Europe, to start seeing our youngsters at a much earlier age, I believe we will produce a lot more professional players, and it will benefit these islands going forward. The other spin I would like to put on it is that you could maybe once every 2 years have 2 invitational teams so that the quality of our games can improve. So whether it is Martinique, Guadeloupe, Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, whoever, you invite 1 or 2 of them to participate, just to make the tournament itself a little bit more exciting. We are not trying to do what CONCACAF or CFU is doing, but I believe the more football we play, the better we will be, and the more the chances are for our youngsters to get a break out there.
Well, that's quite a lot, Cheney. I hope we have enough time, because we have so much to talk about. But Your friends already giving you some banter there. You know, tourists talking about Harps banished Cheney, and then he said that fully welcome as part of RFG newsroom team. I guess as much that's a media team. And Homian is actually saying that the name of Hazelland, I should say, not Homian, Hazelland, sorry. That's Griffith. Was Hamilton Hill. That's the one that, on Luther's Lane, right?
Yeah, that's the name. That's the name, Miss Adams, Veronica,
right.
Adams.
Yeah. Thanks, Hazelland, for that memory, I should say. I was trying to remember the name myself. Hamilton Inn. You know, a very popular hotel for sporting teams, eh?
Correct. But you know, I always remember my first job after leaving school. When I say first job, first major job. Toro was an editor at Radio Free Grenada, and I'll bring back Toro memory to a very unfortunate scenario that happened to me. Now, when they recognized at RFG, that's Radio Free Grenada, that I was doing sufficiently good, they then started allowing me to be able to do my sports reports or sports news, without the assistance of the editor. And I did not understand the politics of the day was so sensitive. There was a Polish footballer by the name, Polish or East German footballer by the name of Boniak. He was a very great player. And I did this story because he had, let's put it this way, he had absconded from the East, and he went to West Germany. So the world knew this player, Boniak, and I thought it was a big story. So I also put it there. Well, Toro and Patrick Schmeichel and them then send me to NISTEP and tell me I need to understand the politics. You know, how could I promote someone leaving the East and going to the West and make that a big story on news, you know? So I remember that in particular.
Well, I guess as much the Toro and the Ray and others will probably remember because once you mention the names Patrick Schmeichels and others, you know, in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Cheney, in recent times, especially over the last few months, the GFA seemingly was in what we would consider turmoil, back and forth, in the media, factions, you know. And at the same time, you know, people were of the view that it was hampering the development of football, court matters, you know, just name it. In terms of sports in Grenada during that time, it was football, the Grenada Football Association. And in most cases, Cheney Joseph was the center of all this controversy. But within that period of time as well, you can probably point, and I think others, there's no secret about that, to so many things that have been taking place with football in Grenada as well. And for some people, it might be surprising that with all that has been happening, so much took place in terms of development. GFA headquarters, for example, is one. Qualification for the CONCACAF Gold Cup is another, which is big, and I think you may want to speak to that in terms of boasting as president of GFA, Grenada qualified 3 times and twice under your leadership. Women's qualification or participation in CONCACAF tournaments as well. Cheney, let's talk about the controversies and probably segue into what has been achieved thus far. Is COVID put a pause on the controversies within the GFA?
Okay, I'll answer your question differently. And when I say differently, I hope you have the patience to hear me on that. I tend to feel comfortable riding over the heavy waves. I'm not a great surfer, but I spend little time on what I call the melee and the confusions, because I know deep inside my vision for football is a good one, and the direction in which the Grenada Football Association is going is the right one. Some may not like my leadership style. I cannot always please everyone. And if I want to please everyone, then I want to be doing a good job. However, it was unfortunate what was done by those who did it when they did it. And I always felt it was a motive that was there long before I even became president. And when I say that meaning, I remember wanting to be the president a few years before that. And I lost by 1 vote to Ram Folks, a good friend of mine, by the way. And I say that, and Ram, if you are watching, I do not say things I don't mean. I have respect for you, and thanks for the contribution you have made also in my life in football. And I lost to Ram Folks by 1 vote. However, before I lost to Ram by 1 vote, prior to the runoff, I had beaten the 2 other candidates, which was Ram and Paul Roberts. And I was convinced that I was going to become president. But what was stated is I was too young. It was said that I was too young, so it was not the best time for me. And I stayed out of football for 2 years. I was nowhere around football, and I'm saying nowhere around. And then I was approached by persons to consider running for office, because at that time I think they had put Ram and his executive on, I think they had put an interim body in place. And I always like to qualify that I was nowhere around those times when Ram Folks was running GFA. But it seemed like if I was staged, in other words, you know, I hope I don't get into trouble. The US sometimes impose government on people. I think that was the intention of those who had asked me to go. And I went unopposed. And I remember I cried a lot because it was about a month after my mom's death. May she rest in peace. And immediately we started going forward with ideas about development. I remember insisting that the GFA, for example, should have published regulation. I believe we should have hard copy of our AGM documents. And people started saying, well, he was too much into the glitz and glamour. But I believe in accountability. The company I've worked for the last 20-something years have taught me a lot, and those same things is what I use today in my life. If it ain't true, don't do it. And if you are going to deliberately do something to hurt someone, be prepared for the backlash. And so whatever was the motive behind the attempt, it failed. And I was hoping that once it failed and we were all back together, everything would be normal. It has not gotten normal, and I'm not going to pretend to you that it's normal. But I'm one who very often, I don't say the very fancy prayers, but I ask God to guide every action I take, whether it is in my work, in football, wherever. And I'm saying to you that the executive committee, despite our challenges, I think we're doing an excellent job. There's about maybe more than 100 things I can say we've done different and better than previous administration. I remember when no one believed that it was possible that the GFA could own a building, and persons even stated that, why do you use your resources? I remember 2 good friends of mine, Barry Collymore and Robbie, what's Robbie's name again? Robert. Anyhow, I can't remember his name. Bobby Steele. Bobby Steele. Both of them said to me, Cheney, I don't see why you should spend all that money on GFA in building an office. And I said, I think we're thinking about today. I said, the administrative building is not for Cheney Joseph era. It is for the GFA years to come. And today, that same building now not only has an office where we can sit down and discuss football. Today we had a council meeting. We sit in our own conference room and have our council meetings. And above that, we now have what I call a short-term place for our national teams to stay. And there are as much as 30 beds, that our national players can stay there, train, eat right there, build relationship, the rest of it. That's just one. I remember I was told by some people again that the best place to put lights for football in Grenada would be either Tantine or Montrouge. And I said to them, I don't agree. St. Patrick, in my opinion, has been producing quality players consistently. It was also stated that St. Patrick was considered one of the more impoverished places in Grenada. And so I said, why not us go to St. Patrick's with a light? And I got licks for that. Then subsequently, we put seating for 1,200 persons in St. Patrick. And I continue to get licks for it. But I believe it is for a good reason. And if you look at the history, now we're producing quality players. And I think there's a motivation by some of these same players, whether it is the Lee Brave Boy, the Brady, or whoever. We are producing quality players, right? Joe Marks and others. What I basically can say to you is there's nothing any government or any leader will do that 100% of the population will support. But if you ask me, the Grenada Football Association has made tremendous progress under my leadership, thanks to the executive committee, the support they have been given. And even where at present we have, I call it a split, I think the split is good for the sport at this time because it keeps people like myself, on check. But I believe the quality of the delivery from us is well recognized and regarded. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the Minister for Sport, the new Minister for Sport, Honorable Bain Osford. And she herself said, you guys are doing much more than I thought. I mean, why is it that you guys not talking about the things you're doing? What seemed to be coming out often, Michael, is the negative. And I won't spend much time on those. So I hope, in a way, your listeners are more comfortable with my response. And I'm not here to speak much about those negative things.
But won't you agree that to some extent, the negatives outweigh the positives? In fact, that it takes quite some effort on your part to get the positive out, because the negative seems to be outweighing what you consider, I should say, the negative, outweighing what you perceive as a positive.
I think our biggest weakness right now is our communication. If we were to be doing better communicating with the general public and our clubs, I think some of the negatives will be overshadowed. If you ask me, for example, when I first got into the GFA, we were not giving clubs any support whatsoever. All they were doing is playing competition and you pay them prize monies. From the time I became president, we have had situations where now all our affiliates are receiving financial contributions from the GFA. We started off with 5,000 per club. We moved to 10,000 per club. And from this year, we were giving each club $15,000. So pretty much under my manifesto, the last time I went back, I said, let's pass it forward. And pass it forward was simply saying, let us take the FIFA model and introduce it here in Grenada, which we are doing. Some people are not yet seeing our vision in that regard. We continue to give them support in terms of equipment. We don't talk about that. We produce a set of C license and D license and B license coaches from CONCACAF. We don't talk enough about that. So now we have a lot more coaches. We introduced club licensing in 2014. Some clubs are still struggling doing it right. Some clubs are still not functioning. But The effort of the GFA to institute all these things is aimed at improving the football. Women's football, when I first became president and we tried to do international games for women, we didn't even have a domestic tournament. And people used to scoff at us and say the girls going and play and to get the plenty nil. Our girls have qualified in more tournaments than before. In fact, they made history last year by becoming the first ever Grenada female team to qualify for a CONCACAF final. Our U15 girls made it to the B level final against Bermuda and lost 2-1. There are more girls playing football now. We give financial support to girls football. We also give support to, or gave support, sorry, to both primary and secondary school football teams, including sponsoring uniforms for all of those teams. We have just a year and a half ago given all the GFA affiliates a complete kit. We've increased prize monies for all competition. We've introduced Pure Grenada Cup, where every player in the Pure Grenada Cup gets an appearance fee, $100 per player per game. The prize money for the Pure Grenada Cup is significant. And I think if only people spend time on the positive, these small negative things that a few are going to do. And by the way, I will say it openly, the detractors are there not because they don't realize what we're doing, but I guess it's because they are not the ones who are leading the charge to get these things done. But there's so much. As I speak to you now, we are discussing with government about doing additional work in FUR, as well as to construct our technical center. We are now in League One, or League A, sorry, of CONCACAF. We started our road to the CONCACAF Nations League, or the Gold Cup, sorry. We were ranked, in case you don't know, Michael, we were ranked 32nd in CONCACAF when it started. And we've qualified not only for the Gold Cup, but we qualified for the CONCACAF League A. In other words, we're in the same big group with Panama, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, US, Canada, Jamaica.
Well, interesting enough, Jenny, because the argument will also be, if that is so, then what is being done is all well and good to say that we're in the big league, but is maintaining your status in the big league with Panama and and those other teams, because those other teams are playing international friendlies, getting themselves ready to to make their claim in the big league. But what is happening with Spice Boys?
Right. So very good observation, and I see merit in what you're saying. But the good news about football is that there's always a chance for you to improve on anything you're doing. Let me just say that to you. We were expected to play 2 games this month against Barbados. It didn't work out yet. It might be that we might play them later. We were supposed to play also Panama. We were supposed to play Nicaragua. And we were supposed to play, there's one other team, Trinidad is looking at playing us. However, we don't have control over what's happening externally with COVID. The Prime Minister of Barbados stated to the Barbados Football Association that she's concerned about the welfare of her constituents. And likewise, I will say to you, I will not feel comfortable putting 18 players or 20 players at risk, sending them to an unknown place to receive a positive results from COVID, or put them maybe at risk of dying, just to say that, oh, well, the others are doing it and we're not going to do it. I am convinced to myself the government here in Grenada has done a great job. We're just about 37 or 38 positive cases compared to many other places. And I think it's the right thing we've done by not taking part in any games during this kind of situation. I think the player's life is more important than our stats or any fame or whatever comes with it.
Okay. Let's just take some comments that came in while you were speaking there, Cheney, and then we'll flow again with the program. Earlier, Colin James said, I agree with Cheney. UEFA youth tournaments, the breeding ground for future professional players, and I think Toro was referring to your statement earlier. That was better than sending you to Richmond Hill. So I assume.
Was it Richmond Hill or was it in Hopevale?
Hopevale. I think you were ball-headed at that time, so probably Richmond Hill. Yeah. What are the GFA plans for women's football in the primary school? I think that's a concern that's always been raised in terms of sports in the primary school. So David will always ask whether it's football, whether it's cricket, whether it's basketball in the primary school, something you can talk about. Let's get some more comments here. Stunning in St. Lucia many years ago, I hope I'm not mistaken. I think that was a comment in St. Lucia. Still not quite understand that. But then visionary leadership at its best. Clev is saying here that soccer sports in exclusively and pan exclusively are proven disciplines, anchors chained to academics and have shaped many stable scholars who now occupy seats behind pulpits and now sit around tables in making decisions in politics. Goes without saying, Clev. This is true indeed. The negative get more publicity than the positive, and I can't imagine where the Old Trafford, big field, small field competition and competitors would be with such resources. The Yankee man sack, Buddy Boy, Barry, Remo, Boy, Belfont Brothers, etc. Rupert Williams, or Big Bear, and Charlie Hood made magic with the little they had then. It's true, as we all know, that the Old Trafford League, Cheney, in those days, and
I'm a graduate.
Clev is actually saying that, could you imagine that sort of resources available to these guys that put these things on in those days? I want you to comment to the earlier comment regarding women's football in the primary schools.
It seems like David is somehow either walking alongside me as the spirit that I need to guide me, or he was in the room yesterday. We had a very lengthy and productive discussion with a new Minister for Sport. Accompanying her was the Director for Sport, as well as the Permanent Secretary in that ministry. And representing the GFA was Jerry Alexis, Alvin Clouden, and myself. And one of the things that we indicated to the Ministry of Sport is that we would like to get an MOU going between ourselves, the Ministry of Sport, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Youth, and to allow for us to be able to lend some more expertise and resources to help develop it in the primary school. In fact, one good thing I can mention is that the Ministry of Sport is committed to allowing now for all of the football coaches to be trained by the GFA, and we are going to have these same coaches go back into the primary school. It is our intention to sponsor both male and female primary school football starting from the next term, once the teachers do not put any kind of pressure on the ministry or whoever to prevent these guys from being able to play. But David, you're right. I am a big supporter of that. We were supposed to have started a national under-13 league. It did not get started, but I am assured that it will start in January. We are launching also on the 9th of January, the GFA National Grassroots Program. I will also make reference to the fact that every single football academy on the island that is recognized and or established will receive financial and material support from the GFA from as early as maybe December 9th or 10th. And we hope that all of these things will allow for better players being produced. One quick thing though, I just want to kind of go back to the Tantine Old Trafford beer competition, both the one in Old Trafford and the Tantine playing field. If you look back at history, and maybe even long before me, some of the best footballers that emerged from St. George's was as a result of these two competitions. Whether it was playing for Honved, playing for Carnage, Queen's Park Rangers, Atoms, you name it, Dauntless, whoever. Some of the best footballers were as a result of these competitions. And I don't know why, and that's just a question I always ask, why do some people try to fix something that is not broken? In fact, I experience it here in the GFA too. Some things are going extremely good, but we just feel, well, we need change, because I hear the call for my time to expire. And I will say to you, Michael, the beer or the Tantine Old Trafford competitions are a competition that must be revisited. I've called on the St. George's Parish Rep more than once to restart that competition or get in conjunction with persons together, because I played 5 years of the under 16 Old Trafford competition. Coco won every single year, right? Coco United, we won every single year. And I will tell you that I have a photo. Sorry, I didn't send it to you. Almost 75% of that Coco team went on to represent Grenada at some level, whether it was Zagada Cyrus, Franklin Drayton, may he rest in peace, Ricky Cyrus, Brigo, myself, my brother Ling represented Grenada at U20 level. So much players, Gavin Hostin, Keith Fletcher, you can call names, Eddie Bernard, and I'm talking about my era. And for some reason, we don't see that. But I hope that somehow somebody will volunteer to assist in getting that tournament back and running, because Manjaloo benefited from it, All Blacks benefited from it, St. Paul's benefited from it, even teams in the South benefited from those competitions.
And interesting enough, Cheney, because someone from the River Road area and growing up, you'll know that you live in those areas, you have to play sport, and whether it's football, cricket, basketball, whatever it is, and vividly recall, the community football leagues, I played, you played for Coco United, I played for Stone Killers, and, some went on, through that, it developed the Queen's Park Rangers football team.
That is correct.
And such, you had Stone Killers, you had Living Dead, you had
E-Sport and B-Sport.
Yeah, you had teams in the communities, and it was.
I don't think you will know the team Mad Dogs though.
I heard about Mad Dogs, But I'm just saying that to say that it's an important point you're making in terms of the community contribution. It's not everything GFA. They have a part to play, and I think over the years that then strengthened Queen's Park Rangers, because it was basically a feeding ground. You had, as I said, the Coco United, Stone Killer, Living Dead, Uptown Rebels, just name it. And you had most of the guys who actually played for Queen's Park Rangers those days came from there. And you had even the Queen's Park Rangers senior footballers who were coaches of those teams. So it's
in case you do remember, there was a time when there were 4 teams in GFA from River Road.
Right.
Yeah, Rangers had an A team and a B team, but yet for all, you still had Uptown Rebels participating, and I'm trying to remember Logan and them team name when they had made a temporary breakaway. The Cecil Victory, Junior Murray.
Yeah, that's on the steps there. Yeah. Trying to remember.
Yeah.
You're right. Cheney, there is another issue I want us to talk about. It has to do with a non-disclosure agreement that the GFA signed onto. I understood it came through from the Grenada Olympic Committee, and it was something that the GFA supported and to some extent signed onto. Why such an, in amateur sport in Grenada, Cheney, a non-disclosure agreement?
Right, so we can look at it as the glass is either half full or half empty, right? And this is how I feel about it. Because of my privilege as the president of the Grenada Football Association, or because of my position as the president of the GFA, I have the privilege to be in meetings of the Olympic Committee. If I was not the president of the GFA, I would not have that privilege. And therefore, I must also understand that the information I receive there, some of it might be considered confidential. Some of it, I ought not to be the one first initiating the information going out there, but instead from the secretariat of the Olympic Committee or from the executive or whoever it is. And on the basis of that, I have no issue signing on. Apart from that, while I'm not a member of any board of directors throughout Grenada, when you are a board member, you are in a position of authority, a position of leadership, and you are also in a position of privilege. So based on those discussions that you guys may have at that level, there's a certain amount of confidentiality that I believe must go with the position, and therefore I had no problems signing it on behalf of the GFA, because I know that if I was not the president of the GFA, I would not be able to sit in those meetings where those discussions taking place. One may argue the fact, but well, we're an amateur. What's the big deal about that? I will ask you the question: how do you feel? I'm sorry, I'll say it differently. It is, in my honest opinion, whenever there is not a regard or respect for confidentiality, that is when organizations fail, and they fail miserably. I am about to say something that will cause me problems down the road. It was the same reason why NDC didn't last, because every time they had a cabinet meeting, some of the executive members were going out there and telling their fans something that was a little bit distorted. It's the same thing that's happening to GFA, and I may not be around by the time it really becomes a decay, or I would say like, a decayed tooth. I may not be around. But I will say to you, Michael, the reason why we as board members are there is because we are expected to be treating the business of football with a certain level of confidentiality. We also, however, and that's why I said half full, half empty. We also, however, owe it to the council members that we represent to provide them information in a timely manner. The challenge I have with those who are saying, hell no, whatever, is the source of the information coming to the general public. If it is not the official source, then you have what I call distortion, and then you have he say, she say, and different sides and different versions. Hence the reason why I believe to myself, if tomorrow I was to become a board member, I will sign it any day. If I am a member of CONCACAF competition committee, and I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement from the day they decided to make me a member after they did the eligibility check. And I signed it. And you have never heard me, no part of the world, saying something that I sat in a meeting of the competition committee and not wait on the president or the general secretary of CONCACAF to do it. I had the privilege of spending 2 years on FIFA U17 World Cup Committee. When I sit in those meetings, I am not to take the minutes of that meeting and share it and circulate it. It's not right. And I am saying it's on that basis I argue on behalf of it. Granted, you cannot force somebody to sign something they don't want to. But it's neither here nor there with me, but I just justify my own opinion on it.
Okay. How do you explain your commitment to accountability and transparency and an NDA?
Hi, Margaret. It was nice working with you. I can explain that very simple. Accountability and transparency doesn't mean that you have to release confidential information. If you are the press secretary to the Prime Minister, do you then, because of transparency and accountability, go and you just disclose every piece of information you heard your Prime Minister say? Or if you are the secretary to the chairman of a board, do you just go and release those information? No, I am saying it comes with the character of the individual. If you are transparent and if you are genuinely accountable, you will provide information to the members in a timely manner. But I'm saying the source of those information should be one, not many. And that's where my issue is.
I think Toro, as usual, is kind of just teasing you, you know. You know, Toro likes to tease you. But there's some issues as it relates to that NDA, obviously, that we want to get back to once time permitting. And the top of the hour, I should tell you that our
Mike,
broadcast is
Mike,
coming. Yeah.
Mike, if you don't mind, I hope you have a commercial to play. I must move away from your program
Well,
for a minute.
well, yeah, I was just about to tell you that we'll just take a short break and
Yeah.
we'll be right back just to let fans know that our broadcast is actually coming live to you from Buffalo in New York. So, you know, it's a special weekend, and not just for myself, but also I think for Cheney Joseph. We'll let you know about it later on. He is actually in St. George's. I'm actually in Buffalo, New York, where the broadcast this weekend is coming from. Nonetheless, the Grenada Football Association has been under scrutiny for quite a while. Cheney Joseph has been the president of the GFA for just about a decade. He has been, you know, long serving, as you say, for the Grenada Football Association. He has been on the executive for probably almost 15, could be 20 years, you know, because he has been vice president. He has worked under the various administrations, including that of Ashley Ramforce as president as well. And he is also I should say, former vice president of the Caribbean Football Union, and sits on commissions of CONCACAF. I believe he might also refer to commissions on the, if I may add, probably FIFA as well. But he has been around football for quite a while. As we continue with our discussion, just to let you know that coming up next Saturday on our program, we'll have that of Hazelyn Regis. Well, she's now Buckles. She's a former track athlete representing LSU, Louisiana State University, as a standout. And she has been a mentor. She has been a mentor to a number of our athletes over the past 2 years, though she retired from track and field. She's now an educator, and she will be on our program next Saturday. And in December, we'll be starting off with Mr. Victor Ashley, the former principal of the Grenada Boys Secondary School. And later in December, our program will be truncated in the month of December because of the holidays. We'll also have Mr. Bobby Benjamin, the former president of the Grenada Amateur Athletic Association, because then the Grenada Amateur Athletic and Cycling Association. He will be on our program. And just to let you know, next Thursday, there won't be any program because of the Thanksgiving holiday in the United States. Let's welcome back Mr. Cheney Joseph to our program. That was a quick one, Cheney. Let's continue with the discussion. I think the one has to do with so many MOUs being signed, whether it's Argentina, Czech Republic, Mexico, United States, Soccer Federation, name it. It's all well and good, Cheney, for these things to be signed. It looks good, on paper. It's look good for the media. It's look good, But in reality, Cheney, have the JFA really be benefiting from these MOUs? And if so, can you give us examples?
I will say to you all except, and we have not yet signed an MOU with the Argentines, so I just want to clear the air on that.
So is it discussions then?
We are pursuing relationship with them. But let me just say that to you. If persons are of a different opinion, I beg to differ. The U.S. Soccer Federation has assisted us. We have at least 7 coaches who has done the U.S. D license and C license online. You can do your investigation and find out who they are, right? At least 2 of those 7 people are now coaching our national youth teams. Apart from that, the U.S. has consistently supported us with things like equipment, whether it is balls, cones, bibs. They have also offered to assist our refereeing department in more than one way. They have provided, I personally have transported items being donated by US Soccer to the Grenada Football Association. Apart from that, the Mexican model is one where COVID has hamburged it. But when we signed off the very first MOU with the Mexican football, our then technical director can tell you what he benefited from the traveling to Mexico. Our then first vice president, who is now second vice president, can tell you of what are the benefits there, right? Apart from that, recently, Ken Whiteman and Lyndon Langine and Erin Lewis have gone off to Mexico, and they will be able to tell you more about it. I don't want to speak on their behalf. These MOUs are still relevant, but it is the various departments within the GFA to make use of those opportunities. I will say to you, it was because of the same MOU with the Czech Republic that the GFA has just received a brand new 17-seater bus valued at almost $150,000. So if that doesn't mean anything to anyone, cool. Now, we had 5 coaches went off to Czech Republic and to gain coaching experience and knowledge and first-hand view of what is happening there so that they can come back and impart some of those there. The Czech Republic was actually going to be facilitating at least 3 or 4 coaches being able to come to Czech Republic for up to 6 months to be taught in coaching. So those who are, again, I like when you speak about the negative and the positive. I can spend a long time with person, and I want to share this with you now, Michael, because I think it's relevant. I may not get a chance to speak again, and I will not come back to rebut to someone else, but I'll say this to you now, Michael. To speak the truth, you don't have to try and remember. But to fabricate the truth, I hope you can remember. That's all I will say for now.
Cheney Joseph, the philosopher. Cheney, let's talk a bit about the issue of match fees that had plagued the GFA over the years and probably still continue. And I understood that there's now a proposal to have the women to also receive some level of stipend or match fees, probably similar to those of the men. Well, it depends on the age group, you know. But yeah, that has been a sore point, especially for national football teams over the years, Cheney. Has that been rectified?
Okay, so if I just answer you based on your question, then I will not be helping those who don't know what you're speaking about. Previously, national players played for the pride and joy of representing the country, including myself. We did not know what was a match fee. When Grenada looked like it had a good run in 2004, that's when Jason Roberts and Shalwi Joseph and Anthony Modest and them became members of the team. As an incentive after we defeated Guyana 5-0, Elliot Magua, who was the president then, suggested we should give these guys a little match fee. And then we did it for them when they went to Ohio. While in Ohio, we got words from the coaching staff that they wanted an increase in the match fee there. Magua said we didn't have a chance to do it. They said, well, if we didn't do it, they weren't going onto the field. Well, Magua said, no problem, let the guys go and play. Eventually, good sense prevailed, and these coaches went onto the field. However, when we returned to Grenada and Grenada was to play USA here, we lost 3-2. The entire squad, I won't call names now because I don't feel it's doing any justice to them. The entire squad called for a meeting at 1:30, and we had to leave the Grandview Hotel at 2 o'clock, stating that they were not prepared to play if they didn't get a match fee. And Magua said, okay, tell me what you want. And they weren't even sure what they wanted. Magua said, I'll offer you 150, which was EC dollars. They say, no, we want 150 US. So Magua said, okay, fine, 150 US. And as a result of that, that became the norm. And there have been times, and nobody takes that into consideration. where does the money come from to pay the coaches who are training the team, or to take care of the training of the team while we're here, or to pay for plane tickets to go, or to source funding for other programs that we do? All 8 national teams from one source, the one little bit of money that FIFA is given. And so there has been times when our gate receipts has not been as attractive, and therefore we have not been able to meet on time the payment of match fees. But there has been never a time, Michael, and I say that to you now, never in the history, I sound like Ram folks now, never in the history of GFA, while I have been president, that the players have never been paid. Being paid late doesn't mean you're not being paid, right? So that part, I hope I cleared the air with you. Second part I want to say to you is that we have increased the match fees for the players on at least 2 occasions, right? I can't remember the amount now, so don't ask me, but I think they used to be getting something like about $40 US, right? And it has gone up to maybe, I think, 100 or 100 and something US dollars per player, per match, whether or not we host the game. So in case you don't know, when we play Trinidad in Trinidad, we don't make any revenue, but we still have to pay them match fee. We have to pay for them to go there. We have to pay for airline tickets. We have to pay for accommodation or meals or whatever. But it's our money, and we still have to pay them, even though we're not making any. Notwithstanding all of that, it was in May that we made the decision that we will offer the same amount to the females once they represent the country at the senior level. So they have not played any game yet. I don't know of any outstanding monies due to any player because of any match fee. I know there was a delay in sending bonuses. And I should mention that because the public don't know all of that. So thanks for the forum, so I could let the public know as much as I could, if I remember. When Grenada qualified for the Gold Cup this year, a little before that, we offered a bonus if they qualified. Each player was offered $1,000 bonus, and we have made good on our promise. There are overseas
1,000 EC or US?
EC. So that's 23,000 we had to give. And in fact, we ran into a problem because when we made it, the coaching staff said they wanted also. Right? So that's $23,000 we had to find and give them. But you need to give them incentives to these players. And I will say to you, the only people who may not have gotten it yet is because the players, 1 or 2 or 3 players from overseas, because they say, well, yeah, if you send my money for me, Western Union or bank, whatever, it's going to cost for me to withdraw. So hold it still.
Okay. I guess as much.
Sorry, you have the privilege to challenge whether or not this is accurate. This one wasn't fabricated, so I don't have to try and remember.
So you're basically telling me now that the whole issue of the remuneration to players, that issue has been resolved. Are you saying that?
I am saying to you there are no issues relating to remuneration for players.
Okay, no issues.
We do not pay players, the younger players who are still entitled to US scholarship. So if people are expecting us to pay these players, I am saying I'm going to protect their education by not paying them $1.
Okay, and you also add in the fact that the Pure Cup, the Pure Grenada Cup, or Pure Cup, whatever you call it now, match fees have now been added to that. So players and officials are also receiving.
Yeah, you are correct.
Okay. Cheney, the issue of the Constitution, and it has been a bone of contention even when we go way back to 2008, 2009 era of the normalization committee and all these things with FIFA. It always has to do with something with the Constitution. The latest on the Constitution and the issue that some of the affiliates clubs are having with the GFA has to do with representation. And I think it has to do with the conference as it is now, meaning that the Premier League teams are represented by their respective representatives. However, when it comes to the conference, it means that you are represented by someone. So 5 teams in a conference will only have one representative. Cheney, based on an interview last week with a representative from the Happy Hill Football Club, there seems to be some concern with that aspect in terms of representation. The belief is that each affiliate should have their representative or representation at the GFA. How do you, as the president, foresee resolving that issue with the Constitution?
Okay. It was last year, not this year, last year's annual general meeting, I stated to the council that I am one of those who is committed to ensuring that we return to one club, one vote. I am not doing so because I want to be the president the next time around. I'm doing so because I think it's right. And all who have issues with the current statute with regards to representation in council, I say to them, hats off, and they are correct. How dare you tell me I am a member, and I will use Ram Folks example because we had that discussion before. I'll give you a little bit of the history of GFA to support my point. Hurricanes, St. John Sports, Queen's Park Rangers, Honved, Fontenoy, maybe Carenage, are some of the oldest clubs in the GFA. Yet for all, Fontenoy, who is around since 1969 or whenever, don't have representation. They can't vote in the council. Carenage, who's been there forever, don't have a vote in council. Honved, who has been back-to-back champions for all of the 80s, don't have a vote in council. But a club that came into existence just 2 years ago, I just say that not meaning 2 years ago, is directing how things should happen for Fontenoy, Carenage, Honved. Can't be right. But there's a second part to it, which is the catch. I'll tell you straight up, and I have no apologies saying that. Many of the people who are concerned about that rights to attend council meeting is not concerned about the development of council and the quality of administration. A lot are concerned about the politics of football and probably voting at a meeting. I'll say to you differently though. How about when we get back all the clubs to be back in council? How about us also saying to the same clubs at the same time, go get back your executive in place. Don't come here with your personal views. Ask how many of the clubs have they met with the members of their club prior to a meeting. I use, for example, the GFA had a council meeting today. I will be surprised at how many of them can say the executive met 2 weeks ago and discussed certain matters. And following that meeting of their executive committee, they have met with the membership of their club and they have shared with the membership of their club the views of the executive, and they have then voted on it and decided to come to today's meeting. I ask you to tell me how much of the same clubs who can produce to you minutes of their last 4 meetings. I ain't saying in the last 4 months because I don't know how often they meet, but the minutes of their last 4 meetings. I ask you to ask some of them, can you produce to me your annual general meeting minutes for the last year or the last 2 years or the last 3 years? And how much people were in attendance at those meetings? I ask you to ask some of them, if that is so correct, when was the last election at your club level? And who were the persons present when you had your election? We play games with football and we play games with information. And I'll say something to you, Mike. I'm about to make an announcement here that might not sound good. I will leave while I'm on top. And I will share with you that I'm satisfied that my tenure so far has been unsurpassed, and I believe I can quite comfortably say I will go smiling that work done during my tenure has been well done.
Are you conceding,
No,
Cheney?
I never mentioned that to you. I am saying to you, the battles that are being fought are not ones that I think I need to. By the way, tomorrow is my birthday, right? And I'm saying to you, I think I've done a great job for this country. I don't need someone else to tell me. I gave this country 15 years of my time as a player. I gave them 3 years as a coach. And for the last 13 years of, no, more than 13, 98 to now, how much is that? Whatever, I'm not good at math. 22. The last 22 years of my life, I've been given it in administration. So in all, I think 37 years of my life, I have given to this country, not asking or wanting anything in return.
Congratulations to you, and happy birthday in advance, I must say.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I indicated while we were on the break, special for us this weekend.
By the way, make sure you tell Hazelin I say happy birthday tomorrow too, and happy birthday to you, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's belated. It was yesterday.
Oh, I sent it to you yesterday, but I'm just saying so now.
Yeah, thanks very much. Special November bonds, right? But Cheney, the issue has to do also with, and I think Glenn Alexander is saying conferences are not even reporting to members. We have a serious lack of leaders within clubs, and there lies the problem, Cheney, in that we have so many teams, and over we have been speaking about that through the program. We have so many teams and few clubs. So the questions you have been asking there are basically you asking teams, to hopefully get their house in order, because that's a problem we have, and it affects sports across the board, not just football, also cricket, whatever it is. And to an extent, it also shows why we have that void in leadership in sports, because if we do not have strong club structure where people understand what it is, one, to hold meetings, to have minutes, to discuss, to report to your constituents, to engage, all these things, and you just have a team where probably in most instances probably a coach or even the manager sitting at a council meeting, taking decisions, making decisions. This is where we have to, and sometimes believe that they have what it takes to be the president of an association, whether it's a GFA or others. That's where we have the problem. And sometimes, to an extent, Cheney, people ask for change even at the Olympic Committee. But to all respect, sometimes you ask, but who are you replacing them with? Because there is a void, there is a lack of leadership in terms of clubs and in terms of national associations.
Yeah, I will say to you, one of my other area of concern, and I expressed it yesterday. I don't know if you are aware of that, Michael. Do you know each of the affiliates of the GFA are not-for-profit organizations registered under the laws of Grenada? And do we know what these not-for-profit organizations have as part of their obligations to report annually? How much of these same organizations can raise their hand and say, we are adhering to the laws of Grenada and the requirements under such a law, which requires not-for-profit organizations to do certain reports? How much of us can say that we have had audited financial statement? I'm talking about clubs now. Annual audited financial statements.
Well, it's something for you at the GFA, Cheney, to consider in terms of building capacity building, as we will say. It's not just about playing on the field of play, as we will say. Is not just about providing that sort of training for national teams, etc. But in terms of capacity building, because you want to ensure that there is continuity, and to some extent, the GFA can assist in ensuring that they develop and build clubs strong, I should say, not just club structures, but strong club structures, And I'm seeing that to some extent, we are, there are examples where Paradise, for example, I think is now not just a team, but it appears to be a club. I understood Frontenac United, for example, not just a team, but a club. I'm hoping that probably Queen's Park Rangers, which pride itself as a club, the years when you yourself were involved, we had the Queen's Park Rangers football, netball. There was also cricket, and they also participated in track and field, albeit with some tight games over those years. So we are hoping that from GFA probably can lead the process in ensuring, because I think it will assist the GFA, ensuring that there's strong club structures within those the affiliates, I should say, in particular, and encourage them to move to that path as well.
But through the club licensing program, clubs are not supposed to be issued license if they do not meet all of those requirements. So hopefully,
how many have received thus far?
No, the issuing of license has not yet commenced, but it's going to happen soon. After the necessary bodies, I think we have to reinstitute the first instance body and the second instance body, and once that is done, then the process will start.
Okay. Cheney, there are some other issues we want to discuss, albeit not so much, controversial. What has been taking place regarding the various committees of the GFA? And I say that in that there has been some criticism regarding the slow pace of certain decisions. For example, there's this disciplinary committee at times, and the appeals committee sometimes at times, albeit sometimes, you get quick decisions. But I know you will say that it all has to do with voluntary work by some of its members, and therefore when they're available and things like that. So, but there was an issue regarding, I think, assault on referees or match officials, I should say, not just referees, match officials sometime back. Have these things been resolved? Because I know the disciplinary committee had to meet and to decide on these matters. Have those things been?
Yeah, I believe if I made any error here, I'm subject to correction, but I believe both outstanding matters were resolved. One had to do with Queen's Park Rangers players, and I think a few of them got some suspensions. And then the second one was to do, I think, with St. John's Sports players, and they also have some players on suspension. I agree with the concerns of those who say that it takes too long. Sometimes I feel like if players are facing the same as in our court system, because a case might be called today and then it doesn't resolve itself until like 5 years after. If only we could have gotten the members of those two judicial bodies, which are independent, by the way, to act a little faster. I think the strategy to get it done is your competition regulation or your disciplinary code can make provision for a lot more summary decisions by the FA itself. So, if the disciplinary code can make provision for a lot more of those summary decisions, then you may not necessarily have to wait on the disciplinary committee or the appeals committee. That's one way of going around it. Okay, so for example, if you are driving with too many passengers in a bus and the police charge you, I think they can charge you a certain amount of money and you have X amount of days to pay it. If you don't pay, then you go through the court system and it takes a little longer. So I don't know if I answer you, but basically, I don't think we can blame anyone per se, because I know for sure the General Secretary has been sending many matters to the disciplinary committee. One of the things I think has to fix also is when you send in matter to the disciplinary committee, you should have a basic form which speaks to everything, so the disciplinary committee is not guessing what is the desired outcome.
Cheney, without breaching the non-disclosure agreement, the issue with the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association within, and I'm speaking as to you as now a member of, CONCACAF in terms of, commissions, committees, etc. Have that been discussed at the level of CONCACAF as yet as to, what has transpired, what are the lessons coming out of that recent scenario with the TTFA and FIFA?
I think at the FIFA Council, there was an announcement that the TTFA was suspended. I think a similar correspondence came out.
Well, the suspension has been lifted.
No, I'm talking about, you asked me what was discussed. Okay. I know CONCACAF did send a notice stating that they had until such time to be able to participate in competition. There's no issue between CONCACAF and the TTFA as far as I knew. So there's no matter to be addressed directly by CONCACAF with regards to the TTFA. However, if I'm not mistaken, the strike squad would have qualified for World Cup or may have lost to the US on the November the 19th. And they received correspondence from FIFA telling them that they're back in football as of November the 19th. If you ask me, that's just my opinion. I believe it's an internal matter. It's one between the TTFA and FIFA. There's no need for solidarity. If the TTFA has issues, I think it has to be addressed by them and the parent body. So I do not want to go into any details regarding what may have been, in my opinion, a very direct matter between TTFA and FIFA.
But knowing that Grenada has experienced a similar fate over the years, don't you think it's something that should be of concern, not just to Grenada, but other associations in the Caribbean, especially in the Caribbean?
I will answer you this way. We will always have someone going to jail for breaching the law, and that will continue as long as you are alive. So there's the possibility that another association may one day have the same experience, but I don't think it's something that you have to express concern about. And I say to my members in the GFA all the time, including today, while I am at the helm, I'm going to guide them and make sure that we in the GFA do not run foul with FIFA. We will adhere to all of the statutes for both FIFA and CONCACAF. So I don't anticipate under my presidency, Grenada having to go in any normalization, except maybe there's a surprise coming that I'm not aware of. So I don't think there's a need for concern.
But you admitted that there's still this rift, there's still this split among your executives. So don't you think such may be of concern to you, or should be of concern to you?
No, I think if it becomes one that is a major concern and it seems not to be able to resolve itself, I will be the first to walk away.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll get some comments from the viewers in a moment, but I want to ask you, as it relates to a comment made by the president of the Caribbean Association of National Olympic Committees, Mr. Brian Lewis on this program on Thursday, in which he suggested the establishment of a Caribbean Court of Arbitration for Sport in the context of the CCJ, for example, because the contention is that Caribbean sportsmen and women and administrators, when they do have to challenge decisions of international sporting federations, are prohibited by cost, and he's looking at more or less a less expensive access to justice, as we'll call it. What's your take, Cheney, on such an idea of a regional court to deal with appeals, especially on sports, I should say, along the line of the CCJ, as he put it?
I will look at it in a few contexts. First of all, I think it's a noble idea. It's one that might require more discussions, more thought, and the merit in it. Also, it might require one looking at what are the objectives. Is it a case where we feel that CAS, you do not get justice? Is it that CAS is one that is cost prohibitive? Is it that one that CAS is not keen on, giving us the necessary audience? We can look at many different things. And I think, just off the record, the idea is a noble one. However, in order for me to be able to give you a firm statement regarding it, I will say to you, I will have to also understand what does the GFA statute say, FIFA statute, CONCACAF statute say about the idea. Now, I don't know if it is proper to sound like I am knocking Mr. Lewis, but sometimes we all, jump on what I will call an opportunity. And maybe because of what happened in Trinidad, he saw an opportunity whereby maybe it's something for consideration. Is it that we are saying that we do not want to be part of FIFA? Is it that we're saying we don't want to be part of CONCACAF? Because if FIFA statute is not changed, whereby FIFA says CAS is the only legitimate body that it will recognize, no matter whatever arbitration tribunal that is established in our region, if we are to retain membership with FIFA and CONCACAF, that arbitration tribunal will be moot. So I think while it's a great idea, I think FIFA might have objection to it, because I know you're talking sports in general, but unless the parent bodies like the IOC, FIFA, CONCACAF, FIFA, whatever world governing body like ICC and those, except they say to sub-regions, we give you permission to have your own jurisdiction for when you have matters in your region. But if you have matters outside of your region, then you must recognize ours. Then I see that as potentially a problem, because the possibility exists that a dispute could be between Trinidad and FIFA in the future. Is FIFA going to relinquish CAS versus that Caribbean whatever? Or is there sufficient times that our local sporting organizations, clubs, and individuals have matters to go before arbitration that we require a regional body? In the case of GFA, what we did was we were running into problems where one or two clubs were quickly always running to a lawyer and then going to the courthouse. We agreed on something through a vote, and we modified Article 65 of the GFA statute to bring it in line with FIFA. So I don't know if there will ever be a need for the Caribbean, whatever is the arbitration body, when in fact GFA, we recognize here in Grenada a final means to resolve any issue amongst us is using Article 65 of our own statute. I hope you and your listeners understood what I'm trying to say. I did not totally answer you, but I gave my spin on it.
Okay. Let's get some comments. Richie Oliver is saying it's been a while. I started to move around and try to understand the GFA, but I will say this: there needs to be more professionalism and commitment from the clubs, and I think the FA needs to be more firm in making sure there's a turnaround in this regard in quick time.
I agree. I 100% agree with him. That's a fair observation.
Elcock is saying, Sherry is saying conferences are basically a joke, and it's definitely steps backward because it has literally denied many clubs a voice in the governing of football, as you would have alluded to earlier. And let's start a petition and send it to Joe Biden. We are seeking a full pardon from the U.S. Justice Department for Uncle Jack Warner, one of the Caribbean's greatest football administrators. He didn't do nothing past than current FIFA administrators from Europe and North America haven't done.
Okay, I'll go first of all to Sherry's comment. Sherry, by the way, great program last week with Mike, you and Kelvin, two good friends of mine. I'll say this to you, Mike, and you could use this as coming from me, and it is consistently my word. I am fully committed to seeing the Grenada Football Association return to one club, one vote. However, I also believe the GFA should commit itself, and its members should commit itself to, one, holding clubs to a higher standard so that you don't have what is going on now. And I will tell you plain out, there are some people who resent the fact that I have friends beyond football. So people like Sherry and Mr. Hector and Cado and Oliver, unfortunately, because they are personal friends of mine, they feel the wrath of persons. But I think we should hold clubs to higher standard. I also will say to you, if you are going to keep these conferences, then the conference should be held to a higher standard. But how I will then do it, I will eliminate Premier League. I will eliminate the Premier League with regards to them having separate authority in the council. And I will say, whether you're in Premier League, Second Division, First Division, or whatever, you are belonging to one of four conferences. And what I will suggest as a consideration also is the board of directors should be the four conference presidents, the two vice presidents, the president, Karakou rep, the women's rep, and possibly maybe a referee's rep. And I think you can have a more balanced executive. I think also there should be what is referred to as minimum quality for or competency for persons getting on the board. I think also that persons on boards of directors, whether it is clubs or the GFA, should be held to a very high standard, not one when you're on the executive of GFA and a different one when you are at the club level. So these are some of the things that I think can be done. And I think the community, last but by no means least, many of these communities should hold these clubs to higher standard too. And some of the professionals who are doing nothing right now should join some of these organizations and help fix it. I think one of the problems we have is, as you mentioned, Michael, some of the coaches are either president or vice president, he's council rep. If he doesn't get elected on a national team, he then tell you, well, his vote will count. Or if two of his players doesn't make the team, he comes and he wants to vote out. Those things have to change, especially where FIFA is given so much money now.
Let's go to our next comment. This is from Kester Elcock is saying, I must say that I'm impressed with the GFA grassroots program. I believe other sporting associations can model their grassroots programs, learning from the shortfalls the GFA had in the infancy of their program.
Yeah, Kester, thank you, and I hope you're doing well at present. I just want to go further, though. I think we need to also engage private schools in football. I think they face what I say an unfair bias by many associations. Now, I do not understand why we tend to want to punish persons who can afford to pay a little for their children. They are left out of almost everything. I mean, I have an issue with that. And I think what the GFA has to also try to do is to engage other associations where we can have.
I have an issue with that.
I can hear myself.
Yeah.
Also try to.
Yeah. So I think these are some of the things we need to do. But most importantly, Mike, and I said it yesterday to the Minister for Sport, if the government through its registry is going to issue articles of incorporation for bodies to function, they must hold these bodies accountable based on the whatever law governs those not-for-profit bodies. The second thing I want to say is that I believe that we should try our best to get some multi-sport clubs in Grenada, and I think there'll be more resources available to each club, and there won't be the fight that is taking place now. So, for example, we have 19 organizations from St. George's in the GFA. We have not been able to see a St. George's team win a major GFA title in a while. Are we doing any justice where some of them, all they have is 20 persons or 30 persons, and you call it a club? A club, Michael, is one where it starts with its grassroots. It may have about 60 persons there, kids. Those grassroots kids then elevate to making the club on the 9 team, the club on the 11 team, the club on the 13, and they move on to 15, 17, 19, and then the senior squad, and then the Grenada national team. There are many organizations, and I didn't say club, in the GFA that cannot put together these different levels I'm talking about. Science has it, and some of the experts say a good club, even by our standards, should have a minimum of 1,200 members. How many clubs in Grenada you believe are capable of having 1,200 members? And I explained to you how that 1,200 members could come about without making it sound too thin. If you even did a small number as 40 at the grassroots level and 30 in every level upwards, you will reach almost 700, right? And if you do the female version to the same thing, then you will see how I came up with my 1,200 number, right? How much of our clubs are capable of doing that, or even attempting to? Hats off to Paradise. They're doing a great job. I say to them all the time, you need to now be a big brother. In fact, Paradise should see themselves as the United States of America to the rest of the world, meaning you use your influence for positive. Sorry, not in this time, but what I'm basically saying is the Paradise model is the model that all clubs need to follow. And if you don't, I've spoken to 2 good friends of mine recently, and I told them I see no reason why they didn't merge. Merge your organization for the purpose of development, not for the purpose of politics and having clout. I am saying we don't need more than 6 clubs in St. Patrick. And truthfully, the only place where there can be some justification is in St. Mark, because St. John's, for example, once had 3 major clubs, and it caused the demise of all 3 clubs at the same time. When there was Ball Wizards, St. John's Sports, and Hub Roots, it was at the expense of all 3, because when the better players then aged, all 3 clubs went out of existence. And mind you, this is what's happening in St. George's now. those 19 clubs not helping.
Okay. There's some more comments coming in, Cheney, that I want us to, because as I warn you, time is kind of slipping by. We just have about roughly 10 more minutes in the program. And just to remind you that our program is coming live to you from Buffalo in upstate New York. Cheney Joseph is in St. George's, Grenada. And Mr. David Gray, St. Lucia, is saying, Mr. Cheney, please explain how the GFA has been able to successfully roll out to completion so many tournaments in such a short time since the resumption of sports post-COVID in Grenada.
Okay. Let me say a few of those competitions had started prior to COVID and had reached a significant way. For example, our U15 tournament is 4 groups. So they are played different parts of the island. So whether it's 8 or 10 teams in a group, and the kids, I think, play twice a week. However, we have, each of our tournament has 2 phases because we are moving from the so-called seasonal 3-month activity to a 9 to 10-month activity for footballers year-round. But we are not having any stop per se, only the senior tournament that's happening. In addition to that, though, I think we must give credit to volunteers. We must give a lot of credit to the secretariat, and in particular, the competition officer. He is a highly competent, well-learned guy who understands it. He's working closely with other persons to make sure, and I give credit to the clubs that they are bought into the vision now, so they are seeing the benefit of it. The FA Cup had started, it was home and away knockout, so that was 37 teams, and then we moved on to the final. The GFA Cup was a shortened version this year, Mr. Gray. However, the GFA Cup is like your parish, and the best players in each parish play, and they do 1 round against each of their opponents. But this year we did a shorter version. And then we're now moving into the club championship, which is 4 clubs, 4 teams in a group, I think 8 groups. And then we have, well, the knockout, not the knockout, but the Wagiti Super Knockout, which is a knockout, it's a one-off knockout. So I think we have learned from the past, and so we're rolling out things much easier now. Our women's football is going to start sometime early in the new year, I think, or December, somewhere there. And they are having footballs for the girls from, I think, U7 right up to senior.
Okay, let's try to get in some quickly. Probably I'll just read the 2 there. Toro Deputy is saying expanding football to more areas, to more groups, including women. It's commendable, but personally, I just find it a bit confusing following which competition is starting and which is finishing, especially if you're living outside of Grenada. And Glenn Gittins saying it seems like football is dying in St. George's. Went on vacation and I go to Queen's Park. There is no one playing. Before there were 5 football fields in the park, and every one of them was heavily utilized. Now there's just one, and it's underutilized.
Glenn, part of the reason is we lost, I'm saying it plain out, I said it up to yesterday, we lost 2 fields to the stadiums, and it's an issue I will forever have until I die. Secondly, we have issues where one ground is overwhelmed, that is the Queen's Park ground floor. So you have times now where there's a serious issue where 4 teams are training on that small field. And so you find people are losing interest. In addition to that, though, most importantly, Glenn, the fact that you don't have a signature team from St. George's that one can really follow at this point in time, I think it might just be part of the reason. Rangers is trying to rebound, but the truth is they have not won a tournament since 2005, I think, or somewhere there. And 100 is still yet to get back up into the top level. Carenage likewise. And who again? Well, Fontenoy is down there too. So that's part of the problem also. I will admit the best solution, it might be controversial, is to reduce that 19 to about 8 and let the members play at different levels within these clubs. Apart from that, I feel that what you can do to offset those who will be somewhat displaced is to bring back the minor leagues, like in Willis, in Tempe, in Vendome, in Happy Hill, in Carnage, Granans. So these minor league footballers will play, and then the 8 or 9 clubs will go look to see if there's talent among them. I think that's the way we have to go. Right now, it's not right. That's my opinion.
Well, adding to what you're just saying there, Toro Deputy is saying clubs and teams are good, even better, are excellent footballers. Spectators want their teams and clubs to win, but they attend games to see individual players. Can't name one player in Grenada now that will make me walk from the Carnage to the stadium to see them play. Cheney, is that a concern? Is that something that is real?
I agree with 100% of what Toro said, and my executive can tell you all the time. Sorry, Wayne Francis, if you're listening, sorry, the executive will tell you. I've consistently stated that, one, we promote all these games, but we don't promote individuals. The name Cheney Joseph was known even before I became 17 years old because Ray Roberts, Paul Roberts, Troy Garvey, Toro, whoever it was, they were promoting games and they were promoting individuals. So when Carnage was playing Hornvet, it was Sack and Yankee Man and Butterfly and Bread and Toro and others, Roger, Wayne, coming up against the likes of Brim, Dummy Chris, Bug, and Boboy, We no longer do that to our football, and I have a problem with that. The second part of it also is the clubs don't exist. So how else will that same club promote the individuals that we're talking about? I am almost certain, and I saw Glenn was part of your program by in there. I am almost certain persons in Latas, in St. Patrick, could have named 14 players that are likely to start on a Queen's Park Rangers team in 1980, 81, all the way up to maybe 1992. I'm talking about Latas and St. Patrick, where a Queen's Park Rangers team in River Road was going there. I'm almost certain the nation could have called out the names of players for almost all of the top Premier League teams back then. Today, we might remember 1 or 2. So I agree. But GFA alone can't fix it. The clubs also...
I was about to ask you, how do we fix it?
Right. So these are some of the things I've said to these clubs before. 1, create your own Facebook and other social media pages. And we have consistently stated to them, the GFA can host the page on its page, right? So that we have a central focal point to get information. 2, get your club also promoting them through its own stories. In other words, Queen's Park Rangers can write the results of a match from its perspective and try to get the media to buy into it, right? Thirdly, I will say to you, appoint PR persons within each club. Appoint a photographer, right? And every game you play, you push it out there. That's not hard to do. I mean, I watched at a magazine that came out recently, The Lead, and they've been focusing a lot on sports in Grenada, also Informer and The Voice. I think these entities will welcome more information from clubs promoting these individual players. So these are just some of the ways I believe it could be done. But we in the GFA, we are in discussions now with Flow Sports, whereby we're trying to get between 28 and 42 games produced on Flow Sports for the upcoming season, and we hope also that we'll be able to monetize these games. So people in the diaspora can look forward to paying a little $20 a year and see as much games as they want.
Is it so that more top players are migrating too. Do you agree with what John is saying?
I don't totally agree with that. Migration has been consistently so. There was a time when I was a little boy, but I remember it. I probably was like about 7 or 8 years, and maybe the whole of the Grenada national team went to the US. Maybe only 2 or 3 came back, right? But the quality of football remained the same. During the 80s, when Berg and Bob Hope and others traveled, football people like myself and Steve Mack and Pele and Zags helped. Even when Zagada and myself and others moved out from the sport, we had the Curry and the Patty and the Nixon, and others. We have consistently lost great players to places like the US and Canada and England, but that justifies my point that a club should have at least 1,200 members. So migration shouldn't affect them.
Well, we bang on time now, but as I agreed, a little birthday present to the birthday boy. Well, tomorrow is his birthday, so I'll give him a little extra just to wrap up on some points because I see some comments coming in, but definitely the birthday boys, I should say, as you said, but Pele is saying here there is a correlation between lack of interest in football and the absence of live football commentary on radio. Radio commentary brings out fans, and that's why I'm saying I want to give you some extra minutes because some very important and interesting comments coming in there, and I wanted to speak to Pele's point.
Pele is bang on target. In fact, if Andre Donald is listening to your program, Andre would probably say to me, Cheney, so Pele had to tell you that? Wasn't I telling you that for the last 2 to 3 years? I will say to you, the Secretariat will also tell you that I've consistently stated I don't buy the notion that radio commentary will cause fans to stay home. In fact, it's the opposite. When they keep hearing that a Michael Bascom and a Glenn Alexander is playing in a match, after a while they become curious and they want to see who are those people. And then when they start seeing those people, they then become fans of those people or clubs. So Pele, you are absolutely correct. I know that the communications department at the GFA is working on trying to get some experts. Hopefully, Michael, you might be one of those experts to train some people in radio broadcasts. And I can tell you that I know part of our 2020-21 season radio broadcast will also be at least in a minimum among the games going forward.
Okay, well, your friend Paul Roberts on the program some months ago did indicate that he's willing to be, to assist in training some broadcasters, especially for football commentary. So that could be part of the process as well, Cheney.
Yeah, well, I will say that openly to you. I am not like some other people, and let Paul Roberts know that I, Cheney Joseph, I don't hold grudge. So I welcome whether it is Paul Roberts or any other person. In fact, last Saturday, myself and Jason Skeet were speaking about the same thing, and Jason did volunteer to lend his expertise also. I think we all love the sport. It's just that some of us, we take a different route to get to the same destination. And I will say to you openly, if Paul Roberts is offering his expertise, fine. In fact, I will say to you and to Paul and all others, the GFA is currently putting together a studio in the same Secretariat building where we can do our own production, such as programs like what you are doing. Or maybe you can be our virtual host when we complete the studio, which is going to be on the 3rd floor.
Cheney, I promised to give you extra minutes for bonus, not for old talk.
But I'm serious.
Toro is saying $20 a year. That's expensive, Cheney. Man does see EPL and Spanish and German leagues for free, But in all seriousness, though, I want to commend yourself, well, the GFA, and also to Richie Olivier and others, even for the quality of the broadcast that we have seen in terms of the football, albeit the equipment that's at their disposal, You know, not the type that can do, you know, the sports broadcasting as, you know, track and field and, you know, running, you know, motion, I should say motion sports, you know. But for what available, it's commendable for what we have been seeing, albeit free for now, you know.
I join you in congratulating Richie, but more importantly, Richie will be aware that the GFA invested just recently over $22,000 US in 2 additional cameras. We call them HiPad, and that is going to be available to Richie for future production. So you will be more impressed with him anytime after this time around.
Okay, and Mr. Gray is just sending a personal message that you check your messages, because I assume Winners TV want to be part of the action as well. Winners TV out of St. Lucia may want to be part of the action.
Well, okay, I will, but he can just simply send an email to gfaprojects@outlook.com.
gfaprojects@outlook.com. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So he will get that message there. And let's go to another comment. I remember that's from Clive Depredine. I remember going into the home of an elderly sportsman and saw a jacket hanging on his wall with an emblem, Grenadian, and with his voice in a whisper expressed what that jacket meant to him. I know we don't have the monies to assist, but how about presenting players like the likes of Sampat, Major Jackson, Heads, Ashley, and others with such a token of appreciation?
It's something we did within my first 2 years of going into office. We did do that. Maybe Sampat didn't benefit, but I remember for sure Jackson was one of those who benefited. DC's Morris Sullivan Bull was one of those who benefited. We did that before. I have a fundamental problem, however, and that's why I say everything we do, we have to do it at youth. I feel for my good friend who died now, Franklin Drayton. I feel for how things worked out for him in his latter years. I feel it for some of them I played with in Guav and the conditions they're at. And so I even feel it more for people like Jackson and others who may have issues. But I have a bigger concern. Why do we wait till people reach in those situations to help them and not try to guide them from since they're young? Hence the reason why I am of the strong view. Let us go to the U10, the grassroots, the U10, the U13. Let us start shaping or molding their future by being positive influences so that we won't have too much of those passing through our sport. I will say that I know I personally have been involved in discussion with Lingham Samuel with the lottery trying to help out Jackson in the past. I don't know if that still continues, but we had discussions with the lottery back then, and the lottery was giving support to Jackson. The truth is, the GFA's funds are guided by regulations, and so there are some things we can't do, but that doesn't mean we don't have a chance to do charitable work. I think what we must do, first of all, is know how many of them are out there before we start lending support, because we might just be lending support to 1 or 2, and there might be many more out there. So, Mr. Depredine, I support it, but I wish we could avoid that by meeting them much early at age 10, 11, 12, make sure they're in school, they did well, and so not much of them will have to rely on what I call handout in the later stage in their lives.
Okay, and I think Pele had added about Moppy, you know, and as you rightly said that, you know, first you will probably need to do a research and probably a database, because you may start with one and then finding out that there are so many others, you know, out there. Cheney, the other issues on the burner for the GFA, what's in store for 2021 in the short term for the GFA?
All right. So in August, we revised our statute. In August, we revised our strategic plan, and there are some short, medium, and long-term plans. Some of the short-term plans include the primary school, getting into the primary schools with both coaches and getting GFA to invest money in competition. It involves the secondary schools investing in competition there, investing more in recruitment of referees, increasing the amount of players, physical players involved in women's football at an age as early as 5 or 6 years. And I'm telling you, all of these are what we call short term. I know we are also pursuing trying to ensure that we can provide greater support for our national program, hence the elite program. I don't know if you heard of it. The GFA elite program, some 42 players will be for 2 years only playing football and be paid by government with some extra support from us. We will be outfitting them with all of the equipment required to play as if they are professionals. So we have 42 players we are grooming for the future. And these players will be 5 days a week training football from as early as 9 in the morning until I think after 3 in the afternoon. Not all of the hours on the field. We will be feeding them every day, lunch and mid-afternoon meal before they go back to their respective homes. We are still trying to improve on governance, and we are hoping that despite what is going on, that the members who are still on the executive can see the benefit of working together, even if they do not have the same views as some persons. And last but by no means least, we continue to lend support to each of the clubs, and we are giving them financial support. And with FIFA giving us money for the COVID support this morning, so I can make that one public. No NDA will prevent me from saying it. Each of the Premier League club will be getting $30,000. Each of the conference clubs will be getting $20,000. The 4 conferences, for the purpose of administration, will receive $25,000. Each of the parish leagues will receive $8,000. There are many academies throughout the country. Each of the academies are getting up to, I think, $4,000. And then still our national players at home, each of them will be getting between $500 and $1,000. So in case persons were wondering what we will be doing with the COVID fund, these are how the COVID fund will be spent. 500,000 US will go towards women's football, so that's separate. And then today the council agreed that we will reserve a minimum of 500,000 EC, where we will keep it in what we call a reserve fund.
And the payment you refer to there, including that of the players, that's a one-off payment, right?
Yeah, that's a one-off payment as a result of FIFA and COVID.
Okay, then. Well, that's something interesting news there, at least. What else, Cheney? For the Grenada Football Association, apart from what you mentioned there in terms of 2021, do you foresee that we will have a prompt start for the 2021 season? Normally, I think it's in May for the GFA season.
Yeah, but the season, no, we've changed the season. The season is supposed to start August, ending in May now, right? However, because of the Wagiti tournament and we have the GFA Cup, as I mentioned, the Premier League will start in January. But that's a one-off year where it will start in January. So the 2020-21 season has already started. We've finished 2 competitions already, right? However, we have the GFA Cup, which will end on December 5th. And then we take a break, and in January we start with the Premier League and conferences.
Yeah, but how things are now, are we on track to start the Premier League and conferences in January? Okay.
Yeah. Right now, yes.
Okay. Well, and I assume that is barring that we keep the COVID under control as it is now in terms of any future lockdowns or anything like that.
Yeah, and I just want to use this opportunity to encourage us Grenadians to be more careful about how we go about living our lives, even during this COVID time. The guy next door could be easily the next person testing positive. Granted, we have not had any death yet. I think it is a responsibility of each and every one of us to adhere to all protocols and to ensure that we keep Grenada as low as possible in terms of positive cases. I know we have had football. Even last week, I saw a video where there were hardly anyone wearing the mask. I want to say to those who are attending football games organized by the GFA or WAGT or anyone, please don't leave home without a mask. Please walk with, if possible, a small bottle of hand sanitizer. Please adhere to this social distancing or physical distancing. Those things are not just because it comes from the police or the government, but those things are to ensure we live at least a little longer, and we are wrong in 2021 when Biden is sworn in as president of the US.
And finally, Cheney, and regarding that same point, do you see that in terms of, especially at the stadium, the national stadium, an increase in terms of spectators in future matches? Because I know that has been a concern as well for the public in terms of, hoping to be a spectator, but because of the contracted numbers, because of the limited numbers that you can accommodate at the stadium.
I will say something that could be controversial, but I will say that openly. I see no reason why between 500 and 1,000 persons cannot be allowed into the stadium, utilizing the entire stadium and have the same regards for all protocols relating to COVID.
Including social distancing?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the stadium can hold 7,000 persons, right? And if I said between 500 and 1,000, I'm certain you could get more than a 7 feet distance or 10 feet distance among spectators. Granted, the host of any of those, though, will have to spend more money to make sure there are wardens and security to ensure people respect it. But I don't see why we will just limit it to that. And instead, those who can't come, they go to a happy hour or they go out on a boat or private party, and they're even closer and they're dancing up in each other's face.
Okay, then. All right, and Cheney, I want to thank you very much for being part of our program this weekend. It has been long overdue. I know since probably August or September, we have been talking about being on the program, and you indicated that you will be available November 21st. I don't know why you chose that date, but I could understand to an extent.
No, let me just say to the public, let me say to the public, I wanted to be in the middle of celebration between Hazelland and yourself, and there was no other date I could have chosen.
I appreciate that, Cheney. I appreciate that.
Never mind, the public don't know. I say that to people, don't worry about Michael and I business, even if you see me banter publicly.
All right. Just some comments before we go. I know we get ready. I think the bathroom policing is a problem, and I think it relates to the COVID. And Cheney is right on that. Read the stadium. The additional advantage the stadium has is air circulation, which is also key. And I think this is important, especially for the stadium itself and its location. I think, Kenny, is, as Margaret is saying, is key in terms of air circulation, and there's no reason why we could not have had more people at the stadium, especially with the bleachers, the secondary pavilion, and you could, as you well said, could have been probably between 500 even to probably 1,000 spectators could have been accommodated easily at the stadium.
Yeah, I want to just make my parting words, Mike, as being one where I send out an open invitation to all Grenadian and lovers of Grenada in the diaspora. Plan your holiday with your bosses and know that Grenada will be playing a minimum of 3 matches in the US come June, July, August, thereabout. So start planning your holiday, monitor CONCACAF website, and I expect that Grenadians, wherever you are, will all be there to support our Spice Boys when they come for the third time in the Gold Cup in the US.
But remember, as they indicated and Toro rightly said too, what is also important is knowing the players. So it will also be important for those who want to support Team Grenada, the Spice Boys. They know the players and about the players. So leading up to all of that will be important in how we, promote the players representing Grenada.
Sorry, before you go, Mike, because it's ironic. I mean, as you rightfully said, this program is one. Obviously, I thought it was too much time I had committed to you, but I realized it's not enough. I just want to mention that we have established a Gold Cup committee. The Gold Cup committee, which is chaired by Colin Dow, and deputy chair is Laiden Ramdani, includes the current GTA chairman, which is Barry Collymore, Roger Duncan, Glendon Langine. These people are currently working on a program whereby they are promoting the Spice Boys, and they will do it in many different ways. They are doing a proper video launch. They are doing a series of billboards and other marketing strategies. And they are also attempting to raise close to US $1 million to help our national team to participate, not just in the Gold Cup, but also the FIFA World Cup. So I forgot to mention that, and I think you will see a lot of feature on individuals on the team in the coming months.
Jenny, you forgot to mention a committee looking to raise almost $1 million.
Yeah,
$1 million US. That's a lot.
Your interrogation has deviated me from the truth.
But on that final note, Cheney, what's the situation in regards to appointing a national coach since the exit of Shalwi Joseph?
Okay, what I can say to you is that the decision has been made by the GFA with regards to the candidate. The candidate and the GFA are, I will say, 98% ready for it. In fact, we were targeting making the announcement for December 1st, but until such time that he has physically signed the contract, I don't think it would be fair to announce it. But what I can say to you is a high quality coach will be well known by a lot of people in the diaspora, and I'm hoping that with his kind of credential, we can create the kind of impact we want to create in future tournaments. But we have already chosen the coach. He's a high-level coach, has a professional certificate, has coached at the highest level. I can mention this, has coached Canada national senior team, has coached Canada under 23 team, has coached Canada Olympic team, has coached Canada under 17 team, has coached professionally, is very involved in Canadian football at the highest level presently. And I believe the individual is a quality coach that we can expect some good results from.
Thank you for that bit of information, Cheney. And I'd like to thank you for being on the program. Wish you all the best on your special day on Sunday. Happy birthday in advance, Cheney.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Thank you very much. Folks, Cheney Joseph, the president of the Grenada Football Association, is also a former national player and captain, and speaking with us live from St. George's, our program emanating from Buffalo in New York this weekend. Just to let you know, there is no program on Thursday, Thanksgiving in the United States, but we will have a program on Saturday. But I want to thank you again for participating in our program, and join us on Saturday, as I indicated, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's Eastern time, which is 2 o'clock Caribbean time, Eastern Caribbean time. This time we'll be joined by Hazel Buckles, formerly Hazel and Regis, a former national track athlete. So once again, thank you very much, all the folks who have been chiming in with your questions, with your comments. I want to thank you once again, and look forward to be with you on Saturday, God's willing. So until then, stay positive, test negative.